What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Weekly, the Week 4 edition for this 2023 season. With me, as always, is my co-host and friend, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. It's we've changed seasons. It's fall. I was all excited because I got to send out my autumn wind is a Raider thing last weekend, and boy, didn't that just fall flat.
Yeah, it's kind of like autumn in San Diego. They say it's there, but I don't know. I don't see it,
Right.
unfortunately. But yeah, it was a tough weekend for a lot of teams. The Raiders didn't have a great weekend, but as you said right before we hit record, at least I'm not a Bears fan, and we can throw the Broncos into that as well. Obviously, last week, even before we hit record, before we were talking about individual teams, it was just how nutty last weekend was. Obviously, look, yeah, the Taylor Swift hoop, blah, 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 but not just that. The Miami Dolphins obviously dropping 7-0 on Sean Payton and the Broncos. And then, Kansas City continuing to kind of bury and put the Bears deeper and deeper into the misery. And look, I got to call out the Baltimore Ravens. They didn't get blown out or anything like that. But if you're going to be a contender in a very good AFC, you got to beat Gardner Minshew and the Indianapolis Colts. And I love Uncle Rico 2.0 more than anyone. But like I said, if Lamar and those boys want to be on a certain level,
Right.
that's got to change. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on what was really a wacky week 3?
Well, one of them is the Commanders. I thought the Commanders were going to play a little stronger against Buffalo last week and to only put up 3 points at home. Very, very shocking, very, very surprising. But after these first 3 weeks, is it a matter of that's the true color of any of these teams out there? You really just don't know. So now, though, I do question, did the Commanders get lucky those first 2 weeks? Is this more what they're about? And are the Bills starting to finally get solid ground underneath them? The other one was Cowboys, after flexing on people for the first 2 weeks, to go to, I mean, of all places, Arizona, and lose by double digits even. It wasn't like, oh, we kicked a field goal at the last minute and won. It was a 12-point difference there. Just there's so much there. You look at this scoreboard and you just have to scratch your head. Bengals, by the skin of their teeth, aren't 0-3. And I will tell you what, as far as my thoughts go, Joe Burrow is second to the last right now in the quarterbacks. He's only got 563 yards. This is not going to be a good year for Cincinnati. I don't think it's going to turn around at all. The other one that I saw that stood out is, man, our old buddy, our great friend Don Benson. My heart goes out to him and his Rams because I really thought they were going to pull it off. They didn't pull it off. The Ram offense just couldn't get going. Hats off to the Bengal defense. They're the ones that stepped up, kept them in the game, and probably won that game for them. And when the dust has settled, unfortunately, the first 2 weeks of excitement and maybe T-shirt sales and things like that were great. But Puka Nakua it's like he came back down to earth this week. He got 5 out of 7, but he sure wasn't advancing. He wasn't a highlight like he had been those first 2 weeks. Josh Jacobs from my own Las Vegas Raiders. What a disappointment this guy is turning out to be once again. 3 games, 45 carries, 108 yards after 3 games. He hasn't hit the end zone yet, but he told everybody that I was working out. I was in Oklahoma at my high school working out while I was on hiatus. And, I think I said it last week. That's not the same.
No.
Unless you got, somehow you brought in the Sooners to come there and chase you around a little bit. That doesn't mean in shape and being able to get hit and being able to execute the patterns that they give you on the playbook to night and day.
Yeah, it's pretty dark, in a lot of places. Obviously, you hit on some of them. For the Cowboys, for me, the one thing that really does kind of jump out is this team really just Trayvon Diggs? I mean, he goes down for the year, and this is the thing that we see. And it wasn't a fluky kind of, oh, if this goes this way or if that goes. I mean, they lost that game handily. I mean, I believe they trailed the entire game. I don't know the first points. I got to my mom's house a little late, so I missed a little bit of the early start to the 125 games, but they were ahead the whole time. And the whole time I was saying, look, in the first half, this is kind of crazy. I don't think Dallas is going to cover, but Dallas is surely going to come back and win this game. Got a little distracted with the Blue Angels buzz in the house. Next thing I know, I look on my social media and hey, the Cowboy memes have rolled out. So that was very interesting. And like I said, I guess Trayvon Diggs, that was a bigger loss than I expected for them. But I guess it's kind of what happens when your defense, doesn't, force 3 or 4 turnovers like they have, or faced, a team that doesn't have New York in front of their name. That's kind of how that happened there. But obviously the Dolphins are a team that jump out to me as a incredibly fast and impressive team. My only question is this team looks a lot like Ferrari. And look, Ferraris are sexy and they're fast and they're sleek. They're very ergonomic, but you don't see a whole lot of Ferraris driving around in November and December.
Right.
And I'm not saying that this Ferrari I'm talking about doesn't have that capabilities, but I think it is something that we do need to keep into in thought, where I don't think no matter who they play defensively later on, we're going to see this again. Now they're going to play Buffalo. And they're going to be in Buffalo. And really the first 8 weeks, if you head to Buffalo, you have to be very, very appreciative that you're going to Buffalo in September and October, not November, December, January. So that will help them there. But that's the only little caveat that I have to the Dolphins' success. But it was just a wild weekend that I think further drives home the point that the NFL is essentially, I mean, truly any given Sunday. And myself, I said last week that, hey, I'm trying to track my bets and I want to get in the green. I'm going to be honest with y'all, and I hope you keep listening, but I was not in the green. I put up an offer, and yes, Dallas was on my ticket, and so was Washington. So trying to find the pulse of this league, and I think the hardest part is the pulse seems to move every week because we may see Dallas come back out and dominate again this week, and we might see Miami get shut out or something like that. So who knows? But at the end of the day, we are here to give you our insights as we do look forward to week 4. And that's where we are going to get rolling to staying in chronological order. Of course, we are recording on the 27th of September. It's a Wednesday. And all of these lines were courtesy of Bovat as of yesterday, so there should be some movement. But overall, Thursday night football, the Detroit Lions. You don't see the Lions going into Lambeau as favorites too often, not by a lot, but they are technically favorites as they will face their rival Packers. The Lions are 1-point favorites. The over-under sits at 46. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Lions at Packers.
Yeah, I will tell you, I really have a lot of respect for what Green Bay's doing right now. I get it. They're not undefeated. They're 2-1, but they're playing very, very good ball. They have done what teams are supposed to do. Okay, great. We're just going to move on from Aaron Rodgers. And they have, and they are, and they're executing. They're playing very well. Right now, they're definitely doing, their defense is holding very well too. Defense, I'm looking at the stats right now. It's a very, very small margin between the Packers and the Lions with respect to offensive output and with respect to defense. It's going to be quite a game. However, and let me go off just a little bit. I did check the whole NFL weather schedule. No games are going to be impacted by weather this week. No moisture, no nothing, including at Lambeau Field. And because of that, and because they're at home, and because they're playing Thursday night football, and they love the highlights over there, the spotlights, I should say, I will definitely take Green Bay on the money line on this one. And then I'm also going to take the over. I think there's going to be some points put up.
I agree on both of those. I've been really impressed. Also with the Lions, obviously, look, the Kansas City, they look real good, and it's not been as impressive. But on the Green Bay side of things, I think if you just kind of go into it where you don't really know the players, you don't know the talent, all that stuff, and you just watch the NFC over these first three games, you could make a very good case the Green Bay Packers, from what you've seen in the eye test, are the third best team in this conference, obviously behind the Niners and the Eagles, especially after what we saw with the Cowboys. Now, like I said, talent wise and durability and how long will that continue? That's probably another question. But the Packers, as you said, look, this is a young team, and I know teams don't like to use the word rebuild, but this is kind of how the Packers rebuild. This is a franchise that, since 93, 94, when Favre got there, they've had essentially two quarterbacks over 20 years. 25 years. Ask the Browns fans how important a franchise quarterback is. And I'm not saying Jordan Love is, but there are a lot of things that I see out of Jordan Love and go, okay, they have their guy. Now where he ends up overall and the overall talent, I don't know, but when he peaks, he is going to be a top 10 quarterback. And the Packers are just such a unique franchise, the way they're ran. They're owned by the city. It's kind of like if your grandfather was to run a football team, this is the Packers would be it. A lot of continuity. I just like that, with all due respect to the Lions, obviously up and down with them. I got to take the Packers here. Until the Lions really show that they can show up for kind of these bigger games, I'm going to take the other team, or at least, in most situations. And the Packers also have to look at this division going, this is our division to lose, with a exclamation mark. Minnesota and Chicago don't look to be competitive. And if they can beat the Lions here, they're going to have a stranglehold on the NFC North really early on.
Yeah, one of these teams will, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. This is kind of like a early season, championship, or who's going to take control early on. I do expect it to be Packers, like you, Raider Jim. And in agreement, I think we're going to see some points being scored. I do worry a little bit about Thursday night. That's kind of generally an under game, just because the offenses don't have a whole lot of time to implement a whole lot new, even with the division two. But I think we're going to see some points being scored. So I'll take the money line as well. So we're in agreement. Money line and the over on Thursday Night Football. Green Bay money line, I should specify. So moving on to some of the games we're going to be seeing on Sunday. And we'll start in the AFC West. Of course, it is the Las Vegas Raiders. They are technically, on paper, going to be the road team, and they will be in Los Angeles to face the Chargers. Chargers are 5.5-point favorites, and the over-under here is 47.5. We can't have anyone else have the first word on a Raider game other than Raider Jim. The floor is yours.
Yeah, a lot of teams are saying right now it's too early to tell. It's only 3 games. Everything's going to be fine. Let's see what happens. I'll tell you what, after what I've seen the last 2 weeks out of the Raiders, it is not going to be fine. It's not going to be better. They have a very, very weak offense. If I'm not mistaken, they're averaging 15 points a game. And that's not good. And then at the same time, they are giving up 29 points a game.
Yeah,
which that's not a recipe for victory. Not only that, the Jimmy Garoppolo's poor decision making last week. Guy's been around. You would think he isn't going to panic throw. You would think he's going to know how to throw the ball away. I'll give it to him with some of the runs he will make to get the first down. Give him credit for that. But at the same time, he's not leading. He's not a leading quarterback. Josh Jacobs is a very weak running back at this point. And, say what you will about he held out, but he was working out and training and all that. We can't wait 5 games, or the Raiders can't wait 5 games for him to get going and rack up enough yards to make an impact. And I even said it last year at one point. That was the first year we saw Josh Jacobs perform as he did last year. But was that extra effort coming for the sake of the contract? Now it's looking like possibly. The defense is not improved at all. It's still Max Crosby's the one-man show out there for the most part. Divine Diablo, he does great, but even at that, he's not that much pressure. The edges are still very weak. Secondary is very weak. Carlson, when you always can just go back, it's like those years, that span where it was, what's the highlight of your team? Sebastian Janikowski. Great, that's fine. Maybe he'll get 3 extra points in a game, but he'll always be there for the long field goal. That's not what it should be. That's not going to be success against the Chargers, who, even though they aren't playing lights out football, they're not playing that well. But do they have a strong enough offense to really take it to the Raiders? Yes, they do. The Chargers win by 5.5. I hate to say it, I think they will. I think they'll cover by 6 or 7. Over 47? Yeah, because the Chargers are probably going to put up 31 of those. So that's how they're going to get over 47.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I do agree. One thing that does give me a little bit of pause, and I kind of alluded to it in my intro to this game. Look, the Raiders are going to Los Angeles. It's going to be heavy Raider fans. That is the number 1 team in Los Angeles. No matter what the NFL wants to tell you, the Raiders run LA. And I think we're going to see that, but I don't think that is enough to get them through here. The other part of it too is, can they force the Chargers to be the Chargers? And sometimes, the Chargers get into situations, and 90% of teams, you can turn the TV off. The Chargers, you almost kind of get closer and go, uh-oh, is this going to happen again? I do wonder with Jimmy G, though, if maybe this past weekend, and it's taken him 3 games to realize, okay, this isn't the Niners. I don't have a top-notch defense. I don't have Debo and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle out there. Maybe I have to change things. Ideally, that's the case, but it's looking a little desperate there in Vegas. And on the Chargers side of things, how do they deal without Mike Williams? It doesn't look good, unfortunately, for Mike Williams. An immense talent, but just look, through no fault of his own, he can't stay on the field, and it doesn't look like we'll see him on the field this year. That's not been official or anything, but just look at the body language and the reports. It's not adding up great. So Justin Herbert's going to kind of have to find other options, and Keenan Allen had maybe one of his best games of his career last time. I think that does add up to the Chargers covering here. I do like the over 47.5. Like you said, the Chargers might do a lot of the heavy lifting themselves, and the Chargers defense isn't anything to write home about. However, the Raider offensive line is going to have a hard time because, I watched and I always struggle with his name, Tuilopo, or he's the rookie for the Chargers. He played for USC last year. He's been one of the few bright spots outside of Joey Bosa for the Chargers on the defensive side. I don't know if that adds up terribly well for an offensive line like the Raiders. It's going to struggle, but we shall see. And who knows? Like we said, if week 3 taught us anything, expect the unexpected. But this would definitely be unexpected if the Raiders.
Yeah, and had the Raiders offense performed better over the first 3 weeks, if they had more than 45 points on the board, I would give them more of a fighting chance, because the Chargers have given up 86 points. Or no, excuse me, 87 points. They've actually given up 10 more points than the Raiders. But their offense has also almost scored twice as much as the Raiders. So there's the difference.
Yeah, let me ask you, just because Sunday was the first game that I was able to kind of sit down and focus, and I was with family, so I wasn't really able to, but I believe it's Michael Mayer, the tight end out in Notre Dame, who I believe was the first round pick for the Raiders. I thought that was a fantastic pickup, and I don't remember if it was before or after the Waller situation, after the trade, but I just remember thinking, like, that's a weapon. Has he just been any thoughts on him? I don't know if he's even played, honestly. Like I said, I'm a little ignorant on that side of things with the Raiders.
He is not starting, and I will tell you the other thing that it's funny you bring that up. I put a message out on Twitter to the Raider following, and I said, "Do you remember when we used to throw to the tight ends? We used to have a fullback. We used to, I mean, quite honestly, it has turned into uh, it's pretty much all dominant between with Garoppolo and Adams.
Yeah.
And his second favorite target now is Jacoby Myers. When they threw the ball to Hunter Renfrow the other night, I was shocked, and I think he still only got 2 looks. But you got the talent out there. They don't have enough diversity. Like I say, they don't have a fullback like the old Raider teams of the past did, where you were dangerous when you had 1 yard to go. I, Josh Jacobs isn't a small guy, but he's pretty predictable anymore, and he's been in there long enough that he's not going to be the smash guy. He's not Derrick Henry by any stretch of the imagination, where he's just going to overpower you. And yeah, so to your point, to your question, he's just not getting that many looks and playing time, but they're not hitting the tight ends like they did with Waller.
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring up that, that backfield. The first thing that popped into my head was, the offset eye with John Ritchie and Tyrone Wheatley. That is not a situation you want to find yourself in. And even going back to the Chargers, maybe the last true fullback, Lorenzo Neal. I mean, that man, I heard stories about him, old Charger linebacker, Lou Bush, rest his soul. He actually, I don't remember if he was the D coordinator or the linebackers coach at my old high school. And I heard a story through one of the football players that Lou Bush was telling a story about Natron Means another one, but Lorenzo Neal, where before the games he would take the smelling salts and he would actually break them in half and just, I mean, almost to the point where it's like that might be illegal. Like you might be technically doing
Right.
drugs at this point. But just to kind of go into that, like the game has changed to where like fullbacks are. I mean, you could maybe count them on one hand. They're definitely not in the double digits. But yeah, so something's got to change there in Vegas, and who knows? It was just someone who popped into my head. I thought maybe he could
Very
be something.
disappointing because I expected him to be more. He's not going to be the go-to starter probably, but man, bring him in and use him.
I mean,
Make
what do you
it to
got to
where
lose at this?
right, exactly. Exactly. You don't have anything to lose at this point.
Moving on to staying in the AFC West, we are going to be talking about some Sunday night football. And when the schedule makers decide to make this Sunday night football, this was not what they had in mind. But it is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're heading to New Jersey. They'll face the New York Jets. As I said, definitely would have expected Aaron Rodgers to be in this spot. Not so much. The Chiefs are 10-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 42. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Sunday Night Football, Chiefs at Jets.
Yeah, all you silly people who after that opening day loss said, see, the Chiefs are on the decline. And I might have been kind of one of them standing on the apron saying, we really got to watch this. Guess what? Chiefs aren't going anywhere. Chiefs are back. Kelsey's back. They're back to just having a grand old time. They're the anti-Raiders, obviously. They have given up 40 points after 3 games. And people question Kansas City's defense. Are they going to have enough? They've only given up 40 points. They've put up 78. Mahomes is back to doing his thing. That defense is playing that strong, though. Wow, that gives them it gives them a leg up on everybody else in the AFC West. So what happens against the Jets? The Jets are proving that, hey, we're just the Jets, and they're still kind of like muddling around. Kaepernick writes a letter and says, requesting to be signed by the Jets. You know what I equate that to? That's writing a letter to some little girl that sits across the aisle from you and says, please tell me you love me. You just don't, okay, great, I love you. Okay, great, big deal. So here's what's going to happen on Sunday, though. Chiefs are going to roll into New Jersey. It's going to be cool. It's going to be dry. Weather conditions are going to be perfect. They're going to go out there, take care of business. They're probably going to roll up 35 points, no problem. They go over on 42. They cover the 10 points. They go home.
Yeah, I
Hard to
completely
see it
agree.
any other way for me.
Yeah, and especially after what we saw last week, as crazy as this sounds, but I would have given at least what the Bears brought to the table, at least before the game. I felt like they had a better shot than the Jets do. I don't know what the Jets bring to the table because at least after week one, I said, you know what? This is a good defense. And they still are. They really are. But I looked at Brees Hall and I went, okay, holy cow. They just run the ball. Adrian Peterson 2.0, give this kid the rock, and it's just that hasn't really worked either. And a game against the Chiefs, you're not going to be able to rely on the run. You're going to have to pass the ball no matter how good your defense is. We saw last week the Chiefs offense has gotten ready, and I don't know if they're even at full strength, or not, maybe not full strength is the right word, but full gear, top gear I should say, which is kind of scary because what we saw last week. I think they continue this. This is going to be a really, really tough matchup for the Jets. The Chiefs go in, handle their business, like you said. The only thing I do worry about is maybe a backdoor cover. They go for two in a situation where it's like, what are you doing? And it sneaks into 9, but I still like 10 points. I think should probably even be more. But the road factor could possibly be it. In terms of the over under, a lot of me wants to take the under because I like the Jets defense, but I also believe that the Jets defense by the third and fourth quarter is just going to be gassed. They're going to be been on the field for so much of the game. They might have had short fields to defend. So I could see Kansas City getting this done by themselves. So I'm taking the over. I'm a little worried about that number on the over under because it almost seems too good to be true. Like, really? But I think the Jets defense is a part of that. I just think they're going to be on the field way too much. By the end, it's going to get sloppy.
And as
Um,
far as stamina and overall performance, I would tell you that the Chiefs are a little more swift on their side of the ball.
oh
Anyway,
my goodness, there it is. There
had to
it
do it.
is. Yes, I was wondering, but yeah, and that's the other thing. Who knows? Maybe that's how the Jets sell this game out. Some people show up on the off chance that they see a popcorn machine being pushed by. I mean, I feel for those vendors who are going to be pushing popcorn carriers at Chiefs games because they're going to get bombarded with preteen girls. But yeah, it's going to be a whole story in itself. But at the end of the day, I think the Chiefs cover rather easily. But moving on to the game that nobody wants to watch. And look, I thought about not adding it in because the way I build up these rundowns is essentially AFC West and NFC East because that's what we cover. So that's what we know the most about. And then kind of fill in the blanks. I almost said, you know what? No, Denver, Chicago. I don't care what division you
You
are, you're not
gotta.
making it. But we have to because guess what? Look, the money counts just the same in this game than it does in the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's Denver, and they're heading to Chicago, and the Denver Broncos, fresh off the heels of giving up 70 points, they're going to be road favorites as they head to Chicago. The over-under here is 46. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Denver at Chicago.
What an awful game. It's really too bad, though, that for such historic teams, the Bears forever, original AFL team for in the Broncos. And here we are, week 4, somebody looking for their first win of the season. That's silly to me. Now, what have the Bears done, or what are they bringing to the table? They are averaging 15 points a game right now. They are giving up 35 points a game right now. So, I mean, that tells you the whole story, I think. I think Russell Wilson's going to come in. He's going to be able to put together a good game, especially against Chicago. I don't know what we say about the Bronco defense, but I don't think the Bears offense is anything to worry about. They're not going to run up 70 points for sure. I think Denver definitely covers on this one. I might go ahead and take a point or a half point because I can see this being one of those sloppy, the Bears get lucky games. But I do think that Denver covers at least at -3. On the over under, there's my issue. 46 points. I think Russell Wilson and the boys can go out there and put up 21 to 24. I just don't know that the Bears can do better or match that. So I think it's going to be that Denver covers, but that it's going to go under on this one. Maybe give me a half point, 46 and a half. I'll take it.
Yeah, I do think the under here, because both of these teams, and I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous talking about these two teams, especially the Broncos, but at the end of the day, the strengths lie in the defenses. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's just the case, at least with Denver and Chicago. And I'm going to go the other way on this. And I am kind of thinking back to James Cameron's movie, The Titanic, where, you know, the ship's going down. Everyone's freaking out. You know who isn't freaking out? The violinist. And they're playing their tune. They're going down with the ship. And you know what? I think I am the violinist, and the Titanic is Josh Fields. I'm not ready to jump off yet. I think we're still seaworthy. I'm knee deep in water, and everyone's freaking out around me. But I'm gonna play my instrument and tell myself that we're seaworthy. And I think this is a get right game. I think if there's anyone, this is a defense that you can, at the very least, there is a blueprint on how to beat this defense, and there are a ton of plays to do it. Now, can they execute? That's another story. My dad loved road or home underdogs, and he'd probably be rolling over in his grave considering now that I'm going to pick these Chicago Bears to be my road underdog that I'm referencing on. But I think the Bears cover. I like 3.5. I love plus 3.5 if you know me. So give me the Bears. I'm going to play my violin, and I'm going to hope that that we're still seaworthy. But there's a very good chance that I'll be joining Jack at the bottom of the ocean after this week. So we shall see. That's my pop culture reference for the week. But yeah, in terms of the over-under, I'm going to take the under. Look, if this game turns into a shootout, Denver has it. As ridiculous as it is, I think Russell Wilson is a more at least experienced and a better quarterback in those type of games. So in order for Chicago to cover, I think we're going to have to stay under 46. And I also do think that Denver defense, they're out for something. I don't know what they're out for. You know, I don't know if they can break skin and get blood, but they're going to do their best to put that, because they're not a happy camp right now. So moving on to the NFC East side of things, and it's my jurisdiction now. It is the Washington Commanders. They're heading to Philadelphia to face the 3-0 Philadelphia Eagles. The Birds are 8-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 44.5. So obviously I'm going to get this one started. So going back to last Monday, obviously the Eagles took care of business against the Buccaneers. A lot of positives. The run game of the Eagles is maybe one of the best we've seen in some time. DeAndre Swift continues to run really all over defenses. And I'll kind of, here's my second pop culture reference. Us in Philadelphia, we have our own Swift Kelsey combo, and ours work much better. Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying, how many yards has Travis Kelsey gotten for Taylor Swift blocking? None. Look it up for Swift for Kelsey. But anyways, on the Eagles side of things. So really impressed with that. Also, the offense overall, I think this was by far Jalen Hurts' best game. It wasn't his best of his career, but definitely this season looked like he's at least kind of being a little more confident back there. Not a huge fan of the 2 turnovers. But the first one, it was kind of, you know, I think DeAndre Swift and Jalen Hurts got to kind of get on the same page. I believe the DeAndre Swift broke inside. Jalen Hurts wanted to break outside. It was a really ugly pick, but, you know, that will get figured out. The second one felt kind of Carson Wentzy for me. It seemed unnecessary. You don't need to take that shot. But in that game, it didn't really matter. The Eagles only won by 14 points. But they should have won by a lot more. They settled for field goals. There was a fourth and goal that they didn't get. So they left a lot of meat on the bone, if you will, but they still did get the job done. The one thing I'm going to say about Jalen Hurts, that pass where he got popped, and I'm not even going to attempt to say the receiver's name because I didn't even prep for it, but that might have been one of the best throws from Jalen Hurts I've ever seen. He knows he's going to get popped, and he drops it into that perfect little seam between the linebacker and the safety. It was a beautiful throw. So I love to see that. That is, pointing in the right direction. On the defensive side of things, wow, the Eagles are a problem. And not just the Eagles. I have a stat here. Jalen Carter is looking like he is going to be one of those type of players. And look, I've heard the Reggie White comparisons. Look, slow your roll on that. But this is a guy right now, he's currently has more pressures than Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, and Aaron Donald, more quarterback hurries than Quinnen Williams, Micah Parsons, and TJ Watt, a higher pass rush rate, win rate, I should say, than Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, and Kenny Clark. And guess what? He's really only on the field about 50 to 60% of the defensive snaps. This kid is a monster. And the Eagles, I think, really are benefiting on the depth of their defensive line. You can't run against this team, period. You're not going to be able to. You might be able to beat us through the air, but I really like what I saw out of the Eagles defense. Reed Blankenship, goodness gracious, that we talked about him in the beginning of the year. That I was really excited. I know we're talking a lot about Budda Baker, but I think we might be good with Reed Blankenship. He's a very good find for Howie and the boys. So in terms of this game, it's difficult to not take Philadelphia just from what we saw the last two with these two teams last week. Philadelphia looking like they're turning in that direction like we're going to see that we saw last year, and Washington kind of coming back down to earth. I had a lot of high hopes for the Commanders. I obviously would never bet on my own team, but I'd probably take Washington here. I just think the Commanders always play the Eagles tough. I think Ron Rivera and company are probably looking to get right. Eric Bieniemy probably, looks at this Eagle defense and gets a little, I would say pulls his hair out, but he doesn't have any hair. But whatever the bald person equivalent of that is what he's doing. But I just think the Eagles, like I said, they've left a lot of meat on the bone. They should have beaten every single one of the teams in the first three games by a lot more than they did. So until I really see the Eagles firing on all cylinders, I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt on kind of a bigger spread. In terms of the over-under, I like the under here. I think the Eagles are going to want to control the ball. They're going to want to, I think 36 minutes is their average time of possession. Tampa Bay gave the Eagles the ball back with 8.5 left in that game. The Eagles then knelt on the ball. That was it. That was how that drive ended. Quarterback kneel, because they just ran it right down their throats. Couldn't get the ball back. I think the Eagles do a lot of that. I think we stay under the 44.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Commanders at the Birds.
Yeah, I think the Commanders' real colors were showing up last week, where they only put up 8 points on the board. I think your team, the Eagles, are really, they have had iffy, questionable games, or if you want to call it that, or a little bit tested. I know that we both talked last week about when they played the Vikings and how the Vikings, if not for those turnovers, it might have been a lot different turnout, or, even closer than it was. But Philadelphia, as you alluded to, and as you said again right now, what do they do then? Then we just don't put the ball in the air. Here, let these beasts take care of it up front, and let's just pound and pound and pound and pound. It's going to come down to control. I think Washington is not going to be as successful as some people might think they will because of the big division rival. I think Philadelphia wins this one, and I would buy a half a point, maybe a full point. I don't think they're going to cover by more than 7, but I would get 7 points for Philadelphia. But definitely the under on this one. I don't see Washington. I see something like 31-13, and that's where it's going to end up. So 44.5 under that, we got it. So I'm going to take Philadelphia on this one -7. I'll buy a whole point, and then just leave the over under at 44.5 and take the under.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, but definitely two teams that look like they're heading in different directions, but we shall see. Staying in the NFC East, it is going to be the New England Patriots. They're heading to Jerry's World to face the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are 6.5 point favorites, and the over-under is 43. Myself personally, I after what I saw from Dallas last week, and I don't want to overreact to anything, and I also do want to, because we're not going to talk about the Cardinals. We're not going to preview their game. Sorry. Just the way the cookie crumbles. But I do want to say one thing. Joshua Dobbs, my hat goes off to you. That kid, he has bounced around. He was in Pittsburgh for a while, backing up Big Ben, I think. And now looks to have, I guess begrudgingly found a home in Arizona. Really like what he's been doing. I think I shouted him out, a week or two ago. But he was a big reason why the Cardinals were able to do what they did against Dallas. So I want to just kind of give him some love. But on Dallas's side of things, obviously, they're going to want to make sure, look, focus on what we did the first 2 weeks and kind of forget about last week. And I think that could work. However, this is a Patriot team that at the very least is going to come in well coached. And that's something that I think we've seen from Bill Belichick since Tom Brady has left. I think he's gotten the absolute most out of the players that he has there. And now it hasn't been much. Obviously, the success he had had to do with Tom Brady. I understand that. Made the playoffs, I think, the first year without Brady, and then last year kind of regressed back to, the norm of missing the playoffs. I think they take a step back again this year. I wonder about Mac Jones, and I wonder, there's a video going around. He took a shot at Sauce Gardner's privates. I don't know how else to say it. It was caught kind of in the all 22 cam, and Sauce Gardner, I think, reacted, might have got a penalty for it, which, excuse me, at first I definitely was a little, why is he going after the quarterback, blah, blah, blah. And then you understand why. But I wonder if Mac Jones is truly the guy, because they put so much into him. Bailey Zappi last year looked good. Well, he was cut. So they're all in on Mac Jones. I'm not. I do think Dallas gets back into it. I like 6.5. I don't want to see it go up any further. I think that's a perfect number for this game. I think Dallas gets the job done. They're really a team that's frustrated and wants to make sure that everyone forgets about last week. So give me Dallas 6.5. Not terribly confident. In terms of the over/under, I like the over here. Once again, if I'm expecting kind of Dallas to get back what we've seen the first 2 weeks, I think they're going to force plenty of turnovers and get Dak and company into some really advantageous field position situations. So I am going to take the over 43. Definitely going to hope New England can get at least 14 to 17 points. I think they can do that. And Dallas does cover. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Patriots at Cowboys, 6.5 point favorites for Jerry's boys.
Patriots are playing consistent, but what does that really mean? It means that they have scored 52 points. They've given up 59 points. So they're scoring, 14 points a game. They're giving up 17 points a game. Neither one of those is a recipe for success against Dallas. Dallas is coming back pissed off because they lost to the Cardinals the way they did on the road. They pretty much were convinced they were going to be undefeated at the end of the weekend. So they're going to come back. They got to take it out on somebody. They're going to take it out on New England. I'm with you. I don't think New England has the leadership under center that they need to convince me that they're going to come out and run it up against a defense like Dallas's. So give me Dallas. Give me I'll take -6. I'll get a half point on that, but definitely the over. I think it's going to be back to the, it was a fluke last week, folks. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, the bear was poked, and obviously I'm not a big Cowboys fan, and their misery brings me joy, at least on the football field. So I'm definitely not over here beating the drum of the Cowboys, but I do think they were kind of the bear has been poked, and they also know that, look, they are looking at Philadelphia, and if they want to dethrone them in the East, they can't lose this game. So we shall see. But sticking in the NFC East, last one in that division we'll be talking about, it is the Seattle Seahawks. They're heading to the... Do I have that correct? No, I can't have that correct.
To the Giants?
Are they at the Giants?
No.
Because I apologize. I might have, because I'm looking the Jets and Giants both at home. That can't be happening on Sunday. So either I have the Jets in the wrong spot or the Giants. Sorry about that, everybody.
Jets are playing it. No, that's what I'm showing here.
Jets at home.
And Giants. It's got Chiefs at Jets, Seattle at Giants. Oh. Somebody's one of these must be a Monday night game.
Oh, you know what? I think I put
I think
Sunday night instead of Monday night. Goodness, apologies, everyone. I knew I had something wrong there. Okay,
is the
caught
Giant
myself.
this game is played on October 2nd.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So it will be Monday night that the Jets play. So the Giants will play on Sunday. That's what I mean. I'm very confused by that. But
I
anyway,
think it's the other way.
is it
Or
Monday night?
they're both playing at night because
Monday night is
October 1st Sunday night game is going to be Chiefs Jets. Monday night is Seahawks Giants.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. All right, Monday Night Football. Now we're all on the same page. All right, so it is going to be the Seattle Seahawks at the New York Giants. The Giants are 1.5-point favorites here. The over-under sits at 46.5. I do not understand what is going on here. Look, and you could also look back and go, Brandon, how can you not understand? You didn't even know what day this game was on. That's a fair point. But look, Seattle has been much more consistent than the New York Giants. Now, I understand the Giants did get, they're technically not winless, but this has been a team that hasn't shown me anything. And I think there's a lot of inner turmoil. I think both New York teams have a lot of inner turmoil going on. Daniel Jones is not the guy, but unfortunately, he's being paid like the guy. And that's not a recipe for success. And you also, I believe we're still going to be without, Saquon Barkley. So that kind of doubles up there. Geno Smith isn't a world beater, and I think he is maybe coming back a little bit down to earth. But I think he's good enough to beat this team. The Giants do have a pretty good defense, but I think Pete Carroll gets these boys ready to roll. I'm taking Seattle money line. I don't care where this game's being played. Seattle should be the favorite, but I will take advantage of the Giants being the favorites in this one. In terms of the over-under, though, I like the under. These are two below average offenses, and 46.5 is, I believe, the average score in the NFL. So just by that logic, I'm going to take the under. I think we see more of a kind of a sloppy situation, and we stay under the 46.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Seahawks at Giants.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Seattle's got this one hands down. Giants defense is just not good. They give up too many points. Their offense isn't explosive. Like you said, the quarterback, he's not the leader. Here's another situation. They don't have the leadership under center. I think he's ranking way down in the quarterback rankings right now. 1.5, got to tell you, I like Seattle money line. Over, under, even that. I mean, Seattle's averaging 14 points a game. So nothing tells me they're going to do much better against Seattle. Seattle's got a little more firepower, but even that, they're not averaging that many more points. They are averaging 28 points a game, I think it is. So 28-14, you're still going to be under 46.5, no problem. Take Seattle in this one, money line, and under 46.5.
Definitely. And just one thing, obviously the Giants, the points per game, at least in the defense, I think that at least for a few more weeks might just be skewed from that Sunday night situation where they were put into some really bad situations. So moving on to kind of the no division, just looking for the best games. Two interesting teams right here. It's the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 2.5-point favorites as they go on the road to face the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, this game has an over-under of 41. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors. Cincinnati favorites as they head to Tennessee.
I'm just not impressed with Cincinnati still, and I'm not that impressed with Tennessee either. But when you look at their stats, points for, points against, they're dead even. I think there's a 1-point difference somewhere along the way, but they're just dead even, which tells me neither team's that productive on offense right now. They're not that. They're okay. Their defenses are keeping them competitive right now. But at home, Tennessee to be the 2.5-point underdog Give me a half a point, and I'll take Tennessee +3 on this one. And but I think it's going to go over. I think we're going to see a few points scored at Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm maybe not going to use the Titanic analogy on me playing the violin on the Joe Burrow situation, but find that in a much smaller. I was thinking maybe Jaws. We need a bigger boat type thing. That could possibly be it. Like I think Cincinnati. The one thing I will say about Monday night with Cincinnati is they got Jamar Chase going. He looked like okay. Now next step is T. Higgins. that's the next kind of wind up dog you need to get rolling. And the other part of this too is the health of Joe Burrow. This doesn't seem to be an injury that you just walk it off, or hey, you know what, we can get to the bye week, and those extra weeks will be able to make things happen and kind of magically cure it all. I think this is a very chronic injury that's going to be with him for a while. So I think what I want to see out of Joe Burrow, and I think hopefully we'll see in the next few weeks, is now him learning to play with this injury. Because I think that's now has to be, at least for this season, if he wants to play, it's got to be his reality. Now, Tennessee has looked, I mean, get the Charger game out of it, but they've looked pretty pitiful. So I think the way I look at Cincinnati, I see a way for Cincinnati to win this football game. I look at Tennessee and I don't know. I don't know if I see it. I just think there are more weapons on Cincinnati's side. Now, they haven't been firing very well, but I'd rather face a musket, or no, I'm sorry. I'd rather face, World War One, or face a musket, I should say, with my World War One, 3-shot rifle. That's kind of, we're talking about primitive offensive weapons right now.
Yeah.
I like Cincinnati's more. So I'll take Cincinnati. I'll probably, if I would play this game, I'd say money line, which wouldn't be a ton of value, but 2.5. I don't know about that. I could see Tennessee, this could be a 16-14 game or something like that. Right. And you just, kick yourself. But I do like the under here. I as much as until I see better from both of these offenses, even though I know they have the capabilities, I'm going to stick with the under, even though that is a very small number at 41. But
well, if you look at the Rams and the Bengals game, you wouldn't have picked that score for the Rams and the Bengals a year ago or 2 years ago. You would have said, boy, this is going to be lighting it up. This is going to be fun to watch. It was a good game, but it wasn't that fun to watch as far as explosive offense goes.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm not ready to kind of fully, get ready to start questioning Joe Burrow or, things like that. But you look at a lot of the people that have quarterbacks that have gotten paid in the last 2 years, they're not doing too well. And I think some running backs might go, hey, look, why isn't anyone paying them? That's a whole nother story. But anyways, moving on to our second to last game we'll be talking about. This is an AFC East matchup and one of the more interesting lines I've seen in quite some time. And we've even had some on this episode. But the Miami Dolphins, fresh off their 70-point thrashing, they're heading to Buffalo, and the Buffalo Bills are 2.5-point favorites. And the over-under here sits at 53.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Fins heading to Buffalo.
Bills got a great defense, and that's what's going to have to keep them in the game. However, at some point, and I was not strong on the Dolphins in the preseason or even going into the season, and all that is basically from the fact that I was very concerned for Tua. I did not want to see him get hurt. I questioned if he should be out there. Hey, so far so good, and let's hope it stays that way. It's kind of like when you and I watched the thoroughbred racing. We say, man, we just want to see all those athletes stay safe. So we want to see the horses, the athletes, whatever you want to call them. So if they can stay safe, and this Miami team is nothing but a track team, waiting to get on the track and let's run and let's see who's fastest. I think Miami's going to still come out, produce like they have the first 3 weeks, not to 70-point level against a very, very strong defense. But are they going to put up points? Are they going to be able to counter the Buffalo's offensive scheme? Yes, they are. Miami's going to win this one. Give me Miami +3 on this one all night long. We're going to see over 53 points.
Agreed. I really like the over here. I think you have two offenses. Obviously, Miami's on another level, but Buffalo, from what we've seen the last 2 weeks, they've been really good. And it does look like, okay, maybe week one was a bit of an outlier for Josh Allen. It was a weird game. It was Monday Night Football, all the hoopla and the Aaron Rodgers stuff, 4 interceptions, blah, blah, blah. I think he's kind of at least got it back under control. And at the same time, they know, look, we're going to have to put up probably, I think you're going to have to be in the 30s to win this game.
Oh yeah.
And and it's going to be a close one. I really like the over. Miami, and I kind of brought it up earlier. This is the perfect situation. If you're telling Miami you're going to Buffalo, but you're going to do it September or October, whatever the date is, that they're perfectly fine with that. That Ferrari can still drive in Buffalo right now. Will it? We'll see. But I do. I'm going to lean Miami. I do like that by that half a point +3. I think this is just going to be a really fun game to watch. And a game that has a lot on the line because the Jets and Patriots, I don't think are going to be a factor in this division. And I think Buffalo was kind of the presumptive favorite. And now Miami has gotten a lot of people's attention. And I think a lot of people looking at Miami to win this division. Well, Buffalo, if Buffalo can stop Miami right here, that's going to be a big statement for them. So moving on to our final game we'll be talking about. It is in the NFC South. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're heading to New Orleans to face the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are 3-point favorites, and the over-under is 42. Obviously, the big news here, Derek Carr won't be in this game. Still kind of waiting on the prognosis overall, but it does seem like we're going to see a Baker Mayfield versus Jameis Winston showdown. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Bucks at Saints.
I think it's going to be a very good game. Now, last week I expected Tampa Bay to be a little stronger against your guys, but what that told me is it's not Tampa Bay is not that good. It's that Philadelphia is that good. So again, tipping my cap to your Eagles there. Tampa Bay, I think they're going to come out. They're going to play a good game, strong game in New Orleans. That's how they got that 3-point favorite. Winston, though, is a proven factor. He knows the offense, and I'm sure he wants to come out and prove, hey, nothing wrong with having me in the game. It's going to be I think they're going to have actually a more effective game with him than they might have had with Derek Carr under center. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and take New Orleans half a point, -2.5, and I think it's going to go to this is a very, very low over-under. That's the only thing. I can see New Orleans putting up 24 points. I don't know if Tampa Bay is going to put up 21. I think New Orleans defense is going to step up. So give me a half a point on that side too, under 42.5.
I really have been impressed with New Orleans defense, not just this year, but really over the last 2 or 3 years. And
consistent.
Yeah, and one thing that I noticed, look, with Tampa, obviously they ran into a bit of a buzzsaw with Philadelphia, especially that front seven. Credit to them, I guess. They want to run the football. They're not very good at it, but they want to run the football. I don't think that changes this week. I don't think they're going to be very good at it, I should say. And you're going to be in a situation where if you put Baker Mayfield into some bad situations, as we saw on Monday night, he's going to make mistakes. And I think this New Orleans defense is ready to kind of feast on those mistakes. And that's the problem. I like Baker Mayfield more, just as much as the next guy. But if you're the number one overall pick, you are held to such a level. It's almost not fair, but at the same time, we saw him look really good in the first 2 weeks. And I think that was his chance to kind of say, look, I am what I thought, or what someone thought I was. And last week, when put in those situations, the pass coverage of the Eagles is the weakest, probably unit on that entire team, and still fell short. Now he was under a lot of pressure. I know that. I think New Orleans is going to keep him just as uncomfortable. They're not going to be able to run the football. And I think Jameis does enough to win. And I have this looks like I do like buying a half a point. Give me -2.5. This has a 20-17, 17-14 written all over it. So give me the under. I think I don't want to say slam dunk, but I think both teams Saints side of things, trying to figure out how to get rolling again with Jameis, and the Buccaneers just trying to figure out how to get rolling. So I'll take the under, and I'll take New Orleans -2.5. That's for you, Coach. I'm still thinking about you. But with that being said, that was our final game we're going to be talking about. Final thoughts, Mr. Martinez.
Let's hope it starts to make a little more sense after weekend 4.
Yeah, I always kind of look at it like, am I reading the right chapter? Well, at this point, I feel like I'm reading Egyptian hieroglyphics. I don't even know if this is the right book. I don't even know if I'm in the right classroom. It's just been such a weird week. But at the same time, personally, maybe not on a betting side of things, but as a fan, it's kind of why you love it, right? Any given Sunday, anything can happen. And even on a kind of more mega scale, is every single year we see a team that the year prior was in last place, and this year or the next year they end up winning their division. We're going to see that this year. We're kind of cheating with the NFC South just because 3 teams finished in last place, so the odds are in our favor, but we're going to see that happen again. And I think week 3 was just kind of a perfect little microcosm for how we see that. Even the experts don't get it. Vegas is the experts. And look, let's be honest. They gave Dallas that big spread, and Dallas couldn't even cover it, even if they were that number against them. So you never really know. Sometimes you do just kind of have to sit back and enjoy. But I do think I'm going to dip my toe in the water this week just to kind of see if I have a little bit of an idea of what is going on out there. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Take care.
That's safe.